Well, it looks like Games Workshop made 2 crap tons of money last year, and if you're interested in their view on geopolitics, it looks like the war in Ukraine is not going to be ending anytime soon. So let's get the disclaimers out of the way as I talk about the Games Workshop financial report for the past year. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor, and you're not my client. In fact, I'm the president of a company that competes against Games Workshop, Legends of Caladagia up there. And that is why I'm fascinated with this document, because this is one of the few looks we get to see inside a tabletop game company from a financial and strategic perspective. Games Workshop, I believe, is the only publicly traded tabletop game company out there that is also not part of some larger company like Hasbro or something like that. Now, if I define crap ton as 250 million, to get the 2 crap tons of money, you technically got to convert their revenue from British pounds over to USD, because this year is definitely the first year that for sure Games Workshop's core revenue surpassed 500 million USD. Now last year, depending on exactly what number you use for converting from British pounds to USD, they might have hit it, they might have not, but this year for sure, they just blew right past it with 445.4 million British pounds of revenue. If we go back a few years, we can see that in 2020, their total revenue was only 269.7 million British pounds. So they've seen an increase of almost, actually, one second, that's total revenue. Comparing that to this year at 470.8 total revenue, yeah, they've seen an increase of almost 200 million British pounds, though that number does come down a little bit when you factor in inflation and stuff like that for constant currency. And of course, for Games Workshop, core revenue primarily refers to Warhammer 40k and Warhammer Fantasy miniatures, the rule books, and assorted things that go along with those games. But it also includes Forge World, as well as Black Library, their box games, and any other random accessories and little things they might sell throughout the year. Probably White Dwarf subscriptions are in there as well. Compare that to, say, licensing revenue, which is always a lot smaller. That is where they go ahead and license their intellectual property, exploit their intellectual property, that's their term, not mine, for other video games, TV shows, and things like that. But what I'm really interested in is seeing what that number is going to be next year. We've got a few big things coming out, according to Games Workshop anyway, that actually will affect that. First up is going to be Space Marine 2. Now, of course, this is the game that I'm really excited about. I love Space Marine 1 and will probably be buying this when it comes out. According to the Steam page you see here, the planned release date is 2023. However, what you see here in the document, new games launching in 2023/24 include major titles Realms of Ruin and Space Marine 2. Now, Realms of Ruin, I believe, is getting pretty close to release date. That's the Age of Sigmar. I think it's a real-time strategy game if I keep up with the video games. I really don't. And Space Marine 2, which kind of implies that we may be seeing a 2024 Space Marine 2 release. Which the last official date I think I saw, well, official as you know when we talk about video games, I saw for Space Marine 2 was December of 2023, so it may get pushed to 2024. But now also on the topic of licensing, there is that Amazon TV show floating out there. Do they have anything to say about that? And the answer is yes, they do, on bottom of page 6. Entertainment. Our contract negotiations with Amazon Studios continue, so within normal legal constraints, we have nothing more we can add, and we will update you accordingly. And in case you were wondering at the time that I'm recording this, yes, the Writers Guild Strike of America, as well as I believe the SAG Actors Strike, is still going on. I don't know if this affects negotiations. It probably does because, well, pay is a big part of this whole thing. So we'll see how things turn out on the Amazon TV show front. But it would be awesome to see a Warhammer 40,000 TV show. But you know what Games Workshop is not afraid of? 3D printing. In fact, in the entirety of this particular document here, they don't even mention it at all. They really don't even talk much about third-party kind of Warhammer compatible type people as a threat to their business model. And maybe you might be thinking, well, it's a bit of a conspiracy. Games Workshop doesn't want to talk about how much 3D printing piracy is destroying their business, but they're a publicly traded company. If they truly felt that resin printers and people printing off their own little Space Marines at home was a real threat to their business and they weren't telling their investors about it, they could be looking at all sorts of lawsuits and who knows about whatever possible regulatory actions in the UK. They have crazy laws over there. But if you do like 3D printing, I got some shameless self-promotions for you. Sitting back over here are 3 3D printed near future sci-fi vehicles for tabletop gaming that I'll be releasing in the very near future. In fact, as I'm recording this, I'm waiting for Kickstarter to approve my project to go live. Supposedly they have until the end of the day to contact me, which if they have a San Francisco office, that means they've got about 1 hour and 52 minutes to get back to me. So hopefully down in the description below you can find a link to the preview page. This campaign will be going live here just pretty shortly in the next few days. All right, end of shameless self-promotion. Let's get back to the annual report. Now in this opening part of the report, the strategic report, this is where you often get some interesting comments from the CEO, but frankly, it's kind of boring this year, and most of this annual report is kind of boring. They're not mentioning anything kind of cool like they do sometimes in the past. The basic gist that Games Workshop says, and they always say this, is that their goal is to make awesome gaming miniatures based on their own IP, which they can exploit to other people to make more money, and sell said gaming miniatures to gamers who will pay crap tons of money for said awesome miniatures, and they want to sell these things all over the world. Which then of course brings me to the next 2 points about a worldwide audience, Russia and China. On page 5 we have this note right here. On a sad note, we made the hard decision to make our Russian language translation team redundant. We held off as long as we could, but with the war in Ukraine sadly showing no signs of ending, we had to accept the reality that we won't be in a position to provide hobbyists in Russia with the offer we want anytime soon. We wish all the individuals well, and our thoughts go out to those impacted by the horrendous events in Ukraine. So Games Workshop stopped selling to Russia early last year with the invasion of Ukraine. And if we jump back to last year's report, we can actually see some information about how this impacted the company. So here we've got page 4 from last year's annual report. Most external factors affecting Games Workshop are not new. My best guess is losing Russia sales for a full year is about £4 million lost in net revenue. One of the many strategies Games Workshop is going to take by trying to offset those Russian losses is to move into the Chinese market. Let's take a look at this entry right here. Work towards obtaining a Chinese compulsory certificate was completed as expected. Our factory successfully passed follow-up audits, and we now have all relevant core products accredited for sale across China. The China compulsory certificate is basically a safety mark to be able to sell products in China. Of course, anybody who's tried to buy Forge World off eBay knows there's a whole basically black market of Chinese recasters selling those products on eBay. I think eBay's doing a better job of cleaning it up now, but it used to be a huge problem. But it'll be interesting to see what kind of success Games Workshop is going to have entering the Chinese market when there already is pretty much a huge counterfeit market readily available. I would like to point out there was that funny story from 2011 where the Chinese counterfeits were so good that even the employees of a Chinese counterfeit Apple store thought they were working for Apple selling actual iPhones. You're going to see some total knockoff Warhammer stores in China, I bet, soon. If you see one of those, take a picture of them. It's probably hilarious to see what they look like. Okay, I did lie. There are 2 interesting little fun nuggets in this report. First of all, let's talk a little about Warhammer Plus. And we actually get some subscription numbers. The exciting content delivered through Warhammer Plus will remain an integral part of our digital offer and how we share our IP. Subscriber numbers are currently 136,000 compared to 105,000 from last year. That last part wasn't a quote, that was me just summarizing. I think you guys can tell that by reading the screen though. And the other fun nugget is here at the bottom of page 4. Often in the shadow of Warhammer 40,000, Warhammer Age of Sigmar continues to grow steadily with the launches in the period for the Seraphon, Slaves of Darkness, and the wonderfully named Gloom Spite Glitz, all being well received. I pick out that particular line because maybe that does kind of imply that Warhammer 40,000 is a lot bigger than Age of Sigmar and therefore it's most of the revenue, but Unfortunately, Games Workshop never breaks down the level of revenue between their different properties. They kind of just make vague statements like this and let you figure out the rest. And in case you want a little bit of a look at how Games Workshop approaches their business, they effectively have 3 sales channels. Trade is the independent game stores. This is always the largest amount of revenue. Retail are the stores that they own and operate. And then online are sales through their online website. Presumably Forge World is in here as well, but they don't think they ever actually say that. But any kind of online sales directly through Games Workshop count in the online category. When it comes to their retail stores, they always say the same thing. We want our stores to be profitable. And they open and close as they see fit. And you have the stats right here. And then when it comes to future plans for those things, we can take a look at page 10 of the report, where they talk about adding 30 new stores. And also, our online store will have a new platform and will be rebranded for launch in 2023/24. So that means that old Games Workshop website they have over there that's been kind of a pain to use for a long time, it looks like it's going away. Now let's end on a controversial note and talk about social responsibility. These statements are always fun. And like the rest of the report, this year's statement is kind of bland. We are committed to ethical sourcing and staff well-being, diversity and inclusion, ... I will continue to do my best to ensure this is the case and that we are fair and free from any bias and or prejudice. The reason I just bring that up is compare that to last year's statement, which is a little more interesting. So this is page 9 of last year's report under social responsibility. We now have our first joined up draft STAR plan. We will continue to focus on ethical sourcing and staff well-being, diversity and inclusion, delivering our legal requirements. We are reviewing the business consequences of collecting and reporting on race and ethnicity. To date, we have never collected that data from our staff. We are not sure if it's the right thing to do or have the legal authority in some countries to request it without failing some other legal requirement. It's a complex problem to solve, and we don't discriminate. Yep, definitely a very different response last year. Anyway, I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield. Hopefully you enjoyed this look through of the Games Workshop annual report. I certainly enjoy them because, well, they're just interested to see what Games Workshop is thinking. It was kind of bland this year. They just want to sell you more Warhammer miniatures next year. That's about it. Pretty straightforward. Alright, well thanks for watching, and before you go, one last shameless plug. You can find a link to the Kickstarter campaign for these 3D printable miniatures down in the description below. I really hope it's there. If not, that means Kickstarter told me to go screw off. Anyway, I'll see you next time.